What is up, folks, in YouTube world, land, whatever. I haven't made a wrestling video in quite some time. The last one I tried to upload, I uploaded it in 2 parts, and it didn't really work right. So this is my 3rd attempt to do that video again. Of course, it's weeks later. But anyway, and obviously things have transpired since then, so obviously the topics will be different. One of the things I wanted to touch on first, there have been a lot of people who have decided to, well, and I'll join in on that subject, have recently decided to kind of, when it comes in terms of wrestling, professional wrestling, they kind of, recently the topic has been decided that we're going to debate which top promotion, be it TNA or WWE, has better pay-per-views. And they try to, the pay-per-view of the month, whatever it is, they try to link that WWE pay-per-view, compare and contrast to the current TNA pay-per-view for that month. And I'll be honest, considering SummerSlam for the WWE pay-per-view hasn't happened yet, I think it's very difficult to make a automatic decision on how good, on who wins the battle. Right now, even though the WWE hasn't had the pay-per-view yet, as far as this month is concerned, they won. The pay-per-view, right, the SummerSlam card, some good matches, some not. The Hard Justice card and the pay-per-view itself, although there are a lot of TNA marks that will say it was a great pay-per-view, it honestly wasn't. There were a few good matches. The opening match was excellent. Showcased the X Division, obviously. But it seems like they're doing that in pretty much every pay-per-view. They showcase the good the good X Division, and then they basically fill up the rest of the card with half crap and somewhat decent matches. Now, recently, the likes of the tandem of Bill and Doug, and I think PS Power too, tried to say that Hard Justice was one of the best pay-per-views of beat out any Bill and Doug's exact words were, this TNA Hard Justice 2007 was leaps and bounds better than any pay-per-view the WWE has come out with in the past 2.5 years. That's very boastful of the both of them to make a comment like that. I wouldn't be one to make a comment like that. Me being a fan of the wrestling as a whole, not holding any allegiance to any particular promotion, I can say that while Hard Justice had its good points, there were more bad points to it than good points. And the fact that they're so partial to TNA, and the fact that they're saying, oh, well, we've been fans of TNA since its conception and things like that, well, that's great and fine, because a lot of us have. I have as well. And I've noticed that TNA has changed. TNA is, and a lot of people have touched on this, TNA right now has kind of remolded itself into, they're kind of making the same decisions that the WCW made before it went out of business, before it was purchased by Vince McMahon. Now, I'm not saying that the WWE is, all great either. Seeing ECW and seeing Viscera and the Boogeyman and well, that's pretty much it. But in ECW, you have those two who really shouldn't be on any WWE TV right now. Viscera is complete. He's not over at all. The Boogeyman, the only thing that's selling him is the fact that he's kind of awkward and eats worms, and his face paint, and the fact that he makes gyrations. But honestly, as an African American man, I find that kind of disrespectful. But that's a whole other video for a whole other different time. I think WWE, as far as TNA is concerned, not TNA, I'm sorry. As far as what was I going to say? As far as the other shows, Raw was actually good this past week. Wasn't the greatest. Could be better, obviously. The product is stale. Bill and Doug also made a good point in their recent video where they said that the WWE is kind of rehashing the 1980s all over again. And while they might be repackaging the 1980s and forcing it over as Hogan is, Cena is Hogan and the Great Khali is Andre the Giant, TNA is no better with having Angle as the new Hogan as far as running everything backstage. He and Jarrett are kind of, yes, it's Jarrett's promotion, and while Jarrett has every right to run it how he wants to, because honestly, let's face it, Dixie Carter really doesn't run that company. She's just a pretty face behind a desk. She doesn't make any, for anyone that knows anything about that company, the inner workings of that company, I'm not saying I do because I don't, but you can tell that Dixie Carter really makes no executive decisions when it comes to that company. So anyway, Kurt Angle is not, I wouldn't say he's past his prime, but for people that are big TNA fans to continually say that, he's this great pariah that has done so much for TNA, while he has, I think by continually elevating him and by bringing down Samoa Joe, while I think Samoa Joe is in a good program, starting a good program with Christian Cage, I think it's going to benefit him tremendously because Christian Cage is excellent on the mic as he is in the ring. Samoa Joe is excellent in the ring, but not the greatest in the mic, on the mic. So I think that's going to be great for him to kind of bounce off Christian Cage and get better on the mic, because he's in essence not leaving the main event, but I would rather see him as the figurehead of the company, or Christian Cage as the figurehead of the company, than Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle needs to be elevating other stars, elevating the mid-card guys, elevating the X Division guys. I think Kurt Angle, I don't know if the TNA fans will remember this, but there was a time when Kevin Nash was brought back in, and he was feuding with kind of the entire X Division, and he was fighting all the X Division at once, and kind of being, I wouldn't say a teacher because Kevin Nash isn't that great in the ring, but that program benefited, I think, the X Division. It kind of elevated them a little bit, and I think it helped them. I think if Kurt Angle was in kind of that same position, I think it would benefit the X Division as well, because there are guys in the X Division that are constantly trying to get that brass ring, but TNA says, "Oh, no, you can't pass this glass ceiling." Sorry. Guys like Samoa Joe, not Samoa Joe. Guys like Sanjay Dutt. Guys like Jay Lethal. Yes, Jay Lethal is in the he's in the X Division title match, but even if he does win, he's not going to hold the title that long because they're going to give it back to someone like Samoa Joe who really doesn't need it. Or Chris Sabin or Alex Shelley or anything like that. But Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, as a Motor City Machine Guns, one of the best tag teams TNA has. Instead of focusing the tag team division on them, they're pushing them in the back and focusing on the Steiners, who are 90. Well, they're close to 90. They're about, I think, one of them's close to 50 and the other one's close to 60. And the Dudley Boys and LAX and VKM are the four main tag teams, while the Motor City Machine Guns are kind of in a secondary role, which is kind of unfortunate because I think the Motor City Machine Guns should be in that primary role and the four rest of the tag teams should be trying to go after them. I think the Young Guns should be at the top, kind of like when the Naturals were in the company. The Naturals were the cocky, brash, before they had Shane Douglas on with them, when they had, the pink headbands or whatever. And that's when the Naturals were decent. They, with a tag team at the top, they were the young guys. They were beating up everybody. Were taking everybody out and everything like that. And that was great. That was a great time for the TNA tag team division. And just going back to another point I was making earlier that I made in a previous video, I think. And actually, the guys at Chikara, a very big promotion on the East and West Coast, had an interesting video that they did in their pseudo video wire, which I may or may not link recently, that they did. They made fun of Don West tremendously, and it was hilarious. And Wiggly did an excellent job, an excellent impersonation of Don West, and I think it was spot on. He makes an excellent point in that mock of Don West. Don West doesn't need... I've been one of the big proponents, and I'm amazed that the TNA, the big TNA people on YouTube, Bill and Doug and PS Power, have not made this point, that Don West is not in the right position to be as the color commentator for Impact. He doesn't belong there. He has no purpose there. By repeating what's going on in the ring doesn't tell the story. Wrestlers, wrestling fans, young and old, are now more in tune with what's going on in the ring. They don't need to be constantly told what's going on. I haven't seen the WWE do that. Yes, they do it sporadically, but they don't do it that much because they've learned that, the fans see what's going on in the ring. They don't need to hear it over and over and over again. I harped on it in the previous video. I won't harp on it this much. Because I did want to touch on some of the mistakes that mistakes that TNA is making, and now I'll touch on some of the things that I think that the WWE is making, the mistakes that they're making. By living in the Metro DC area, I'm obviously loyal to the DC area wrestlers that are pretty big in promotion, Sanjay Dutt, Batista, things like that. And in the WWE, I think while Batista does need to at least on SmackDown, become better in the ring, I think with his age, I think that makes it very difficult. And while some people are saying, oh, well, fire him, get rid of him, and everything like that, I think if you put him in the right kind of program, I think that's going to be great for him. I think putting the title back on him is the wrong idea. I don't think, obviously, Khali shouldn't have it. The only reason Khali has it is because Edge was injured. And I think the program that the program that Batista had with Edge was great, because I think the fact that Edge is great on the mic and great in the ring benefited Batista, who is somewhat poor in the ring, but is getting better mic skills. I think they played off each other well. Yes, Edge had to do a lot more work in the ring, but I think Batista is very over with the fans, obviously, because every time he comes out and he does that little thing with the thing, when he does a little thing with the pyro, the crowd goes nuts. Even though, yes, he's kind of ripping off Ultimate Warrior, and it is an 80s thing. I'm sorry, it's hot in the house. That's why I keep on doing this. But, I think that kind of stuff is... that's one of the things wrong with the WWE. I also think that with the whole what else is going on? The tag team division in WWE is getting better. In the two main brands, ECW doesn't have a tag team division, but the two main brands, SmackDown and Raw, are getting better tag team divisions. With the tag teams that are there, I think they're probably eventually do away with the Cruiserweight title that has been rumored and has been talked about. That's why it's still on Hornswoggle or whatever his name is, the little person, Hornswoggle. I think they're originally going to get rid of that, which I think is a bad decision. But I guess that's why they put some Cruiserweights on ECW and some Cruiserweights on Raw. I guess that was a sign. I guess that was a telltale sign, because they're not all on SmackDown anymore. That's kind of unfortunate, because the Cruiserweight title did garner a lot of great feuds. I think if Chavo Guerrero had it going into SummerSlam with his match and his return match Rey Mysterio's return match with him at SummerSlam, I think that if the title wasn't on the line, but Chavo still had it, I think if it wasn't defended, I think that would showcase the Cruiserweight division a little bit more. If they had, I don't remember what pay-per-view it was, but there was a pay-per-view. No, it wasn't pay-per-view. It was a SmackDown when Chavo was champion, and all the Cruiserweights of the at that particular time came into the ring and did their moves to Chavo and just basically sent a message to him. I think that was a great pivotal time for the Cruiserweight division. Of course, they didn't bounce off it and continue to do things like that. They had a Cruiserweight Open, I think, after that. But again, I think if it's unfortunate that the Cruiserweight division is dying, but that opens up new avenues for all the talent that is basically in that division. So I think that there's good and bad, but I think there's more good than bad to that. While it eliminates a division, and eliminates a title, I think it brings opens new avenues for all those talents. But again, those are some good, some bad. This is World of Wrestling, I guess, August 2007 or 07, whatever. Again, I skipped July, and I did June. No, I didn't do June. I didn't do July and I didn't do June, but I did a May. And yeah, respond. I don't know if any of the other wrestling guys out there, wrestling guys and girls that vlog about wrestling are going to see this video or not. If they do, if the Monoxides, the Crazy Mikes, the True Slayers, the Bills and Dougs, the PS Powers, if any of you folks see the video and want to respond, by all means do. Yeah, please respond to this video. Start some discussion. Wrestling World, August 2007.